The New York Yankees are once again at the center of a major discussion, and this time the focus is on a decision that has left many people surprised in trying to understand what the team's true plan is for the pitching rotation at the beginning of the season. Over the past few days, new information has come out, and instead of clarifying the situation, it has only made everything feel even more unpredictable. The Yankees clearly have a lot of talent available on the mound, but when you start to look at how they are actually planning to use these pitchers, it becomes clear that not everyone is going to have a defined role right away, and that is where the controversy really begins. The big topic right now revolves around the starting rotation and how the team is going to manage the first stretch of games. With the season just getting underway, the Yankees are dealing with a schedule that is not exactly traditional. There are several days off early in the season, which means the team does not immediately need a full five-man rotation. Because of that, the Yankees appear to be starting the season with a four-man rotation, and that decision alone already changes everything for several pitchers who were expecting to have a role right away. When a team reduces a rotation like this, someone is inevitably left without a clear spot, and in this case, that pitcher appears to be Luis Gil. This is what makes the situation so interesting and also a bit confusing. Luis Gil is not just any young pitcher trying to find his place on a roster. He is a recent Rookie of the Year winner, a pitcher who showed a lot of promise, a lot of talent, and at times looked like he could be a very important part of the Yankees' future rotation. When you have a player with that kind of profile, you normally expect him to be firmly in the rotation plans. But instead, the Yankees are now in a position where they are seriously considering other options, and that has led to a lot of debate about whether this is simply a temporary decision because of the schedule or if it says something bigger about how the organization views him right now. Part of the reason this situation exists is because the Yankees actually have a deep group of pitchers. Even with injuries and players returning later, there are still multiple arms competing for limited spots. When you have that kind of depth, competition becomes intense, and sometimes good pitchers end up without a role simply because there are not enough innings to go around. That seems to be exactly what is happening here. The Yankees are trying to balance development, performance, health, and long-term planning all at the same time. And when you try to manage all those things at once, decisions start to look strange from the outside. Luis Gil's recent performance also plays a role in this entire conversation. After returning from injury last season, he did not pitch badly at all, but he also did not dominate the way some people expected. His earned run average was solid, and he showed flashes of very good pitching, but there were also concerns, especially when it came to allowing too many base runners. That is something teams pay a lot of attention to, because even if a pitcher is not allowing many runs, a high number of base runners can eventually turn into bigger problems. So the Yankees may be looking at the overall picture rather than just the surface-level numbers. At the same time, there is another pitcher in this situation who is creating just as much discussion, and that is Ryan Weathers. His spring training performance was not very convincing, and that is putting the Yankees in a difficult position. On one hand, they invested in him and clearly see potential in his pitching ability. On the other hand, performance still matters, especially when there is another pitcher like Luis Gil who arguably performed better during spring training. When teams make trades or acquisitions, they often want those moves to work out, and sometimes that can influence decisions more than fans realize. This is why the Yankees' rotation battle is not just about who pitched better in a few spring training games. It is about long-term plans, roster flexibility, minor league options, player development, and future rotation planning when the entire pitching staff is healthy again. When Carlos Rodon and Garrett Cole are fully back and settled into the rotation, the situation is going to become even more complicated. At that point, there will be even fewer spots available, and the Yankees will have to decide who truly belongs in the rotation and who might be better suited for the bullpen or even starting in the minor leagues to stay stretched out. Another important factor in all of this is health. Luis Gil has dealt with injuries before, and the Yankees may be trying to manage his workload carefully. Sometimes teams prefer a young pitcher to start the season in a controlled environment rather than immediately throwing him into a full major league workload. That does not necessarily mean they have lost confidence in him. In some cases, it actually means the opposite, that that they're trying to protect him so he can contribute more later in the season when the games become even more important. Still, from the outside, the situation looks strange because when fans see a talented young pitcher possibly being sent to the minor leagues while another pitcher who struggled in spring training keeps a rotation spot, it naturally raises questions. Fans start wondering if decisions are being made based purely on performance or if there are other factors behind the scenes influencing the roster decisions. And with the Yankees, a team that is always under pressure to win, every roster move gets analyzed in extreme detail. What makes this entire situation even more complicated is the early season schedule itself. The Yankees have multiple days off in a short period of time, which means the rotation does not need to be as large right now. But once the schedule becomes more regular and the team starts playing more consecutive games, they will almost certainly need another starter. When that moment arrives, the Yankees will have to make another decision, and that decision could completely change the outlook for several pitchers on the roster. And that is why this story is far from over, because what happens over the next few weeks could determine roles for the rest of the season. As the situation continues to develop, the biggest question surrounding the Yankees right now is not just who starts the season in the rotation, but what the long-term plan really is once the pitching staff is fully healthy and the schedule becomes more demanding. Early season decisions often look temporary, but sometimes they reveal how the organization truly views certain players, and that is why so many people are paying close attention to what is happening with Luis Gil and Ryan Weathers. The Yankees are clearly trying to balance performance, potential, and roster flexibility, but those decisions are never easy when multiple pitchers are competing for limited opportunities. One thing that cannot be ignored is how important depth is over the course of a long season. A team will never get through an entire season using only 5 starting pitchers. Injuries happen, fatigue becomes a factor, and performance can fluctuate throughout the year. Because of that, even if someone like Luis Gil does not start the season in the rotation, it does not necessarily mean he will not play a major role later in the season. In many cases, pitchers who start in the minor leagues or the bullpen end up making very important starts later in the year when the team needs them the most. There's also the possibility that the Yankees are thinking about using Luis Gil in a different role, at least temporarily. Some pitchers who have dealt with injuries in the past end up transitioning into hybrid roles where they can pitch multiple innings out of the bullpen or step into the rotation when needed. This kind of role can actually be very valuable, especially for a team that expects to compete all season and potentially make a deep run later in the year. Having a pitcher who can throw multiple innings and also start games if necessary gives the team a lot of flexibility. At the same time, Ryan Weathers remains a very interesting part of this entire situation. Even though his spring training numbers were not impressive, the Yankees clearly see something in his pitching. Teams do not usually commit to a pitcher unless they believe there is potential that has not been fully unlocked yet. Sometimes a pitcher struggles in spring training but performs much better once the regular season begins. Other times, the struggles continue and force the team to make changes. That is why the early part of the season will be very important for him, because his performance could directly impact what happens with the rotation moving forward. Another factor that people are starting to talk about is how much patience the Yankees will have. If Weathers struggles early in the season and the team needs another starter, Luis Gil immediately becomes the obvious option if he is pitching well and staying ready. That means even if he does not start the season in the major league rotation, he could still be one of the first pitchers called upon when a team needs help. In a long season, opportunities always appear, and pitchers who stay ready usually end up getting chances to prove themselves. It is also important to remember that the Yankees are not just thinking about the first month of the season. They're thinking about the entire year. They're thinking about keeping pitchers healthy, managing innings, and making sure their best pitchers are available and strong later in the season. Sometimes that means making decisions that are unpopular at the beginning of the season, but make more sense when you look at the bigger picture. Pitching management has become one of the most strategic parts of baseball, and teams are constantly trying to find the best way to keep their pitchers effective over a long period of time. The rotation situation will likely continue to change as the season progresses. Once the schedule becomes more regular and the team needs a full rotation. Someone else will have to step into a starting role. That could be Luis Gil, it could depend on performance, or it could depend on injuries. Pitching depth often gets tested quickly, and teams that have multiple starting options usually end up using all of them at some point during the season. That is why this competition is so important right now, because even if someone is not in the rotation today, they could be in a very important role in a few weeks. What makes this entire situation even more interesting is that the Yankees clearly believe they have enough pitching talent to compete, but they are still trying to figure out the best way to organize it. When a team has too many starting pitchers, it is actually a good problem to have, but it still creates difficult decisions. Someone will always feel like they deserve a bigger role, and fans will always debate whether the team made the right choice. That is just part of baseball when you have a deep roster and high expectations. Over the next few weeks, performance is going to decide a lot of things. If the current rotation performs well, the Yankees may not feel the need to make changes immediately. But if there are struggles, injuries, or inconsistency, the team will have to adjust quickly. Baseball seasons are long, and rotations rarely stay the same from beginning to end. That is why the story of the Yankees rotation is still being written, and the decisions being made right now are only the beginning of what could be a constantly evolving situation throughout the season. And if there is one thing we know about the Yankees, it is that expectations are always extremely high, especially when it comes to pitching. This is an organization that historically relies on strong rotations. And when there are question marks around who deserves a spot, the pressure increases for everyone involved. Every start from the current rotation will be analyzed, every outing from pitchers in the minor leagues will be watched closely, and every roster move will immediately become a major topic of discussion. That is simply the environment that comes with playing for a team that is expected to compete at the highest level every single season. So as the season begins and the rotation takes shape, this situation with Luis Gil and the rest of the pitching staff is something that will continue to evolve rather than resolve quickly. Roles will change, opportunities will appear, and performance will ultimately decide who stays in the rotation long term. Right now, the Yankees are making decisions based on schedule, roster flexibility, and long-term planning, but once the games start to really matter and the season begins to settle into a rhythm, the only thing that will truly matter is who performs the best when given the opportunity. But before we continue, please remember to join our channel and give this video a like. Your support allows us to keep bringing you the latest news about the New York Yankees. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments. The whispers started quietly, almost dismissed as another piece of off-season noise. But inside the corridors of baseball's most iconic franchise, the murmur has grown louder, impossible to ignore. A new superstar may be on his way to the Bronx, and if the speculation proves true, it could redefine the balance of power across the league. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. to the Yankees is no longer just a fantasy tossed around by fans. It is becoming a rumor with weight. Sources close to the situation suggest that conversations, while still behind closed doors, carry an unusual level of intensity. The Yankees, a franchise synonymous with blockbuster moves, are believed to be exploring every possible avenue to secure one of the most feared hitters of his generation. Guerrero Jr., known for his explosive bat and commanding presence at the plate, represents exactly the kind of transformative talent the organization has been seeking. What makes this rumor particularly compelling is the timing. The Yankees have been searching for a defining piece, someone capable of not just contributing, but elevating the entire roster. Guerrero Jr. fits that mold effortlessly. His ability to change a game with a single swing aligns perfectly with the expectations that come with wearing pinstripes. Around the league, rival executives are said to be monitoring the situation closely. Even the mere possibility of such a move has sparked debate among analysts and former players. Some believe it would instantly create one of the most dangerous lineups in recent memory, while others question the cost and long-term implications. Yet, if history has shown anything, it is that the Yankees rarely shy away from bold decisions. Inside the clubhouse, the idea of Guerrero Jr. joining the team has reportedly generated a mix of excitement and curiosity. Players understand the impact a talent of his caliber could bring, not only in performance, but in energy and presence. There is a sense that something significant may be brewing. For now, nothing is confirmed. The silence from official channels only fuels the speculation further. But in a sport where rumors often precede reality, this is one storyline that refuses to fade. If it materializes, it won't just be a headline, it will be a statement. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the New York Yankees, please subscribe to our channel and give us a like. We always appreciate your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.